Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Bluegrass again today. I'm your host, Steve Farno. Today we're going to be covering how to save for that home down payment. We all know that things have gotten a lot more expensive lately, and certainly in the housing market, we're seeing home prices have increased dramatically since COVID. And so it makes having that cash available for that down payment now so important and also more challenging. So today we're going to dive into what you should do and kind of the steps to save for that home down payment. So as we've mentioned before, in Central Kentucky, in and around Fayette County and Lexington, the average home price has increased substantially over the last few years. And now we're looking at home prices are averaging at or just above $300,000 for a new home purchase right now. And that's probably not going to change, or we don't expect that to start dropping dramatically. The first step in getting ready to buy a house and to save money for that down payment is you have to set a goal. You have to know how much you're saving for, and you need to have a timeline set to it so that you can monitor that and measure your progress toward that goal. So make sure if you're looking to buy a $300,000 house, 3% of that is going to be $9,000. So as you're looking to do this, you need to understand what your goal is. How much do you need? So that's start there with both a dollar amount and with a timeline that you want to reach that in. And that'll help you determine what those weekly, monthly, and annual savings numbers should be. So once you have that number in mind, the next step is creating a budget for you and or your family, your household. This is probably one of the hardest things for me to do. I am not naturally a budget guy. It is much more my wife's side of the equation in our house. But it is extremely important when you're looking to save money and trying to save a substantial amount of money that you create that budget. You need to know what's coming in and what's going out. And once you do that, the picture becomes a lot clearer for you on what the needs are and how you can save more by having that budget. Without it, monies are going all over the place without you really keeping track of it. With the budget, you'll know exactly how much is going where and how to make sure that you hold on to as much of it as possible so that you can afford to buy that house sooner rather than later. So as you're looking to create that budget, there are tons of apps, tons of support technologically that you can find that will help you track your budget and maintain some strict discipline on that. But you have to find one that works for you. If you have all these fancy programs, but you don't use any of them, then they're worthless. So make sure you find something that you're going to use and that's going to help you and not just say, look, I got these fancy apps. Because if you do that and don't ever use it, it's a waste of time and money. So you have your budget now. So the next step within that budget is really identifying those extra expenses and those costs that you really can do without, and trying to kind of trim the fat out of that budget, as you will, to try to put more of that hard-earned money into a savings for your down payment. And I think that this is, for all of us, it's one of the hardest things to do, is you want to have that, dinner out, right? You want to grab your coffee at your favorite coffee shop. Whatever the case may be, trying to reduce those extra costs, the things that you know that you can do without this week or this day, right? That's going to help, and it adds up. $5 a day for a fancy coffee is going to be over, $1,500 a year that you can put towards your down payment. You know that kind of the average car payment these days is almost $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year that if you're able to figure out how to shift some monies around and save a little bit on your coffee, you're halfway there. So figuring out how to cut those extra costs is hugely important and a really important step in saving for your down payment. So next step is you're cutting costs and your expenses. Now it's time to reduce your debt, right? We all have probably a car payment, you have credit card debt, things of that nature, maybe student loans. All of these things can work to play a part in what your credit score is and reduce your ability to purchase a home. Lenders will look at that debt to income ratio, and the less debt you have to whatever you're making, the better. So figuring out how to reduce that debt is extremely important. And one thing to mention, we want to talk for a second about credit score and specifically what goes into the FICO score, right? And so if you have credit cards, you want to pay those down, but you don't necessarily want to cancel them, because that will actually work against you in your credit score. So your payment history is a big part of it, paying on time and those types of things. The amount of debt to credit utilization is a big part of the FICO score. Actually, the length of your credit history plays a huge role. How long have you had a credit card, right? The longer that history, and especially if it's in good standing, the more positive impact it can have on your credit score. Opening new, you go to the furniture store and they're like, yeah, I'm going to get a credit card to reduce. Opening a lot of new credit is not necessarily a good thing. And then your credit mix, kind of where is your credit history coming from, right? All of those things work towards enhancing your credit score. But one of the big things as you reduce your debt, don't just cancel credit cards, pay them down and just leave them alone, because getting rid of them will actually hurt your credit score more than help it. So as you're starting to save, you want to have a specific savings account that you're going to be putting your savings into, right? That it's a dedicated home down payment savings account. If you can, you want to have that directly deposited, or if you're not, you're shifting monies out of your main savings account or checking account into this down payment savings account. And if possible, you want it to be earning some pretty good interest as well. And we have seen, as over the last few years, interest rates have gone back up, and you should be able to find a pretty reasonable savings account with interest rates approaching sometimes 5% or more. So make that money work for you as it's sitting there waiting to be used for that home purchase down the road, and get it into a really nice high interest rate savings account to help you earn it even a little bit faster. So a side note, as you're working on saving money, there's also some great programs out there to help you with down payment assistance. And as you get your pre-approval in place and you're working with your lender, I want you to make sure that you're asking them those questions about, hey, what kind of down payment assistance programs do you have access to, or that I can maybe take advantage of as I'm looking to buy my house? Do not forget to ask that question. There are Kentucky Housing Corporation. There's a lot of other options out there that you want to always be paying attention to and researching, so that you can get as much of that assistance as needed and maybe reduce the amount of money that you actually have to save in the long run. But the last piece of this, right, is the actual income. And I think that you want to save as much money as possible, but one of the best ways to save more money is to make more money. And that's certainly these days easier said than done. And it's not always a simple, straightforward path for people. So highly encourage you to analyze where you are in your job, in your current career, and figure out, what have you maybe forgotten to do? Is there a way that you can increase and enhance your income? Maybe it's time to think about that career change. Whatever it might be that's going to help you increase your earnings so you can save more money faster, take a moment and think about that. We've all heard about the stories of folks making thousands of dollars a month on side hustles, and those are real stories, and certainly a lot of people have had some success with those. And if you have something like that, explore that. You never know. Maybe that turns into your all-time job, and you can let go of the job that you're really not passionate about for whatever that awesome side hustle is that you've been dreaming about forever. So don't forget to try to figure out how to make more money. And I know it's not always easy, but that's something to make sure you think about. And with that last piece of this are gifts. We might have a family member, a parent, a rich aunt or uncle that wants to help you with this home purchase. So if you do, it's important to know how to manage that and keep those monies in place until it's time to transfer them at closing, instead of moving them all over the place ahead of time. Because if you do that, it's hard to track it, and there's, well, where did this come from? So if you do end up with a gift as a down payment, keep it in that account of the person who's gifting it, and at closing, you're going to have that wired in and have that all kind of laid out ahead of time. And the title and closing attorney who's doing that and your lender can help facilitate that. But don't have them shifting it back and forth, because then they've got to track it. But those are the last couple things to think about. Please do your best, get out there, make more money, save more money, and get yourself in a position to buy that next house or your first house. And if you have questions, as always, please set up a scheduled time to call and talk. Happy to help at any time. Until next time, take care.